She said, "I kissed him to make you jealous. Did it work?" I said, "Perfectly." Then I kissed her best friend goodbye and never looked back. They're not friends anymore. I never thought I'd be writing one of these posts, but here I am at 2 a.m. 3 months later, still processing what happened. I'm 28, and my now ex-girlfriend Sarah was 26. We'd been together for 3 years, living together for the last year and a half. I thought we were solid. Turns out I was wrong about a lot of things. Sarah and I met through mutual friends at a house party back in college. She was this bubbly, outgoing person who seemed to light up every room she walked into. I'm more of the quiet, steady type. I work in software development, keep a small circle of close friends, and prefer staying in to going out most nights. Sarah was the complete opposite. She thrived on social interaction, loved being the center of attention, and had this massive friend group that she was constantly hanging out with. At first, I thought our differences complemented each other perfectly. She brought me out of my shell, got me to be more social, introduced me to new experiences I never would have tried on my own. I grounded her, helped her focus on her career goals, and gave her the stability she said she'd been looking for her entire life. For the first 2 years, it was genuinely great. We rarely fought, had similar long-term life goals, and genuinely enjoyed each other's company in ways that felt natural and effortless. The problem started around month 25 of our relationship. Sarah began making these little passive-aggressive comments about how I was too serious, or no fun anymore. She'd compare me to her friends' boyfriends constantly, saying things like, "Jake took Emma skydiving last weekend. Why don't you ever think of stuff like that?" Or, "Why don't you ever surprise me like Marcus surprises Jess with those elaborate date nights?" At first, I genuinely tried to accommodate her requests and criticisms. I planned surprise dates, took her to concerts I had zero interest in, even went clubbing with her friend group, despite hating every single minute of the loud music and crowded spaces. But it was never enough. The goalposts kept moving further and further away. If I planned a romantic dinner at a nice restaurant, she'd wonder why I didn't think to hire a photographer to capture the moment like she'd seen on Instagram. If I surprised her with tickets to a Broadway show, she'd ask why we couldn't get VIP seats like her friend's boyfriend had gotten for his girlfriend's birthday. I started feeling like I was constantly failing some invisible test that I didn't even know I was taking, and the criteria kept changing without warning. The real turning point came when she started hanging out with this guy Trevor from her work. Trevor was everything I apparently wasn't. Spontaneous, flashy, always posting about his latest adventure or expensive purchase on social media. He drove a red convertible, wore designer clothes, and seemed to live his entire life like he was starring in some kind of reality show. Sarah started mentioning him more and more frequently in our conversations. "Trevor thinks I should try rock climbing. Trevor says I'm too smart to be wasting my potential in my current job. Trevor invited me to this exclusive art gallery opening on Friday night." I wasn't immediately concerned because Sarah had always had male friends throughout our relationship, and I'd always trusted her completely. But the frequency of these mentions, combined with her increasingly critical attitude toward me and our relationship, started setting off alarm bells in my head. When I finally brought up my concerns, she accused me of being insecure and controlling. She insisted that Trevor was just a friend, and that I was being completely ridiculous for even questioning their friendship. Fast forward to the incident that changed everything between us. It was Sarah's best friend Megan's birthday party, and it was going to be a big celebration. Megan and Sarah had been inseparable best friends since their sophomore year of college. They were practically sisters. Megan was also in a serious relationship with a guy named David, who I'd become pretty close with over the years we'd all been hanging out together. The four of us often went on double dates, and I genuinely considered Megan a good friend in her own right, not just Sarah's friend that I tolerated. The party was being held at this trendy rooftop bar downtown that had amazing views of the city skyline. Sarah had spent literally hours getting ready that evening, trying on different outfits and redoing her makeup multiple times. I'll admit she looked absolutely incredible when she was finally ready to go. But from the moment we arrived at the party, I could tell something was off about her behavior. She seemed distant and distracted, kept checking her phone constantly, and barely acknowledged me unless someone else was around to witness our interactions. About an hour into the party, Trevor showed up fashionably late. Sarah hadn't mentioned that he was invited to Megan's birthday celebration, but there he was, making his usual grand entrance with his typical flair for dramatic timing. Sarah's whole demeanor changed the instant she saw him walk through the door. Suddenly she was animated and energetic, laughing loudly at his jokes, touching his arm when she talked to him, giving him her complete and undivided attention. I felt like I was watching my girlfriend openly flirt with another man right in front of me and all our mutual friends. I tried my best to stay calm and not cause any drama at Megan's party. I mingled with other people, talked to David about work projects and upcoming weekend plans, made sure to wish Megan a proper happy birthday with a sincere hug. But I couldn't help noticing how Sarah and Trevor kept gravitating toward each other throughout the evening. They'd separate to talk to other people for a few minutes, but within no time at all, they'd be back together again, their heads close together in intimate conversation, completely absorbed in each other. Megan noticed the strange dynamic, too. She pulled me aside at one point during the evening and asked if everything was okay between Sarah and me. I told her honestly that I wasn't sure anymore about anything. Megan looked genuinely sympathetic, but didn't say much more about the situation. Looking back now, I think she was trying to figure out how to handle the obvious tension without causing major drama at her own birthday celebration. Around 11 p.m., the party was starting to wind down, but most people were still hanging around the rooftop, finishing their drinks and having those end-of-the-night conversations. I was talking to David about our plans for the upcoming weekend when I heard someone behind me gasp loudly. I turned around to see what was happening, and there they were, Sarah and Trevor, locked in what was definitely much more than any kind of friendly kiss. It was passionate, intimate, and completely inappropriate given the circumstances. The entire rooftop went completely silent for what felt like an eternity. I felt like every single eye at the party was on me, waiting to see how I would react to this public humiliation. Sarah noticed the sudden quiet and pulled away from Trevor abruptly, her eyes immediately finding mine across the crowded space. For a split second, she looked genuinely shocked and horrified, like she'd completely forgotten where she was and who might be watching. Then her expression shifted to something I couldn't quite read. Was it defiance? Fear? Guilt? Some combination of all three? I didn't cause a scene like you might expect. I didn't yell or throw my drink or storm over there to confront them or do any of the dramatic things you always see in movies. I just stood there for a long moment, processing what I just witnessed with my own eyes, then calmly walked over to the bar and ordered another beer. I could feel people throughout the party watching me closely, whispering among themselves about what had just happened. Sarah and Trevor had quickly disappeared from view, probably retreating to some corner of the rooftop to have a hushed conversation about the situation. About 15 minutes later, Sarah appeared next to me at the bar, looking extremely nervous and fidgeting constantly with her purse strap. "Hey," she said quietly, her voice barely audible over the background music. "Can we talk privately for a minute?" I turned to look at her directly. "Here? Right now? Maybe we could step outside to somewhere quieter?" I followed her to a relatively quiet corner of the rooftop, away from the remaining party guests and the loud music. She took a deep breath before speaking, clearly trying to gather her thoughts and figure out what to say. "Look, about what just happened back there." "Yeah, what about it exactly?" She bit her lip nervously, then looked me straight in the eye with what seemed like newfound determination. "I kissed him to make you jealous. Did it work?" I stared at her for a long moment, completely stunned by her words. The casual way she said it, like it was some kind of game or strategic move, hit me much harder than the actual kiss had. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a drunken mistake or poor judgment. This was calculated, deliberate, and designed specifically to hurt me. "Perfectly," I said, keeping my voice completely level and emotionless. She seemed to take this response as some kind of encouragement. "I mean, you've been so distant lately, so completely caught up in your work and your boring routine. I needed to know if you still actually cared about me, if you'd fight for us in our relationship. You needed to publicly humiliate me in front of all our friends to find that out? It wasn't supposed to happen like that in front of everyone. I thought maybe you'd see us talking, see him flirting with me, and it would make you realize what you were potentially losing. I honestly didn't plan for it to go that far with the actual kissing. But it did go that far. You kissed another man specifically to manipulate me into feeling something. That's exactly what you just told me you did." She looked down at her feet, unable to maintain eye contact. "I know it probably sounds bad when you put it like that. It sounds bad because it is bad, Sarah. Really, really bad." We stood there in uncomfortable silence for a moment. I could hear the party continuing behind us with people laughing and music playing, but it felt like we were existing in our own little bubble of relationship dysfunction. "So what happens now?" she asked quietly, her voice small and uncertain. I looked back toward the party, scanning the crowd until I found Megan near the dessert table. She was wearing a beautiful black dress for her birthday celebration, but I could see the concern and worry written all over her face as she glanced in our direction. "Now I'm going to go say goodbye to some people, and then I'm going home to think about all this," I said firmly. "I'll come with you. We should definitely talk about this more at home." "No, you shouldn't come with me." You should stay here with Trevor. Seems like you two have some things to figure out between yourselves. I walked away from her before she could respond and made my way over to where Megan was standing. She saw me approaching and met me halfway across the rooftop. "Hey, are you okay?" she asked gently, putting a comforting hand on my arm. "You look upset." "I've been better, honestly. Listen, I'm going to head out early, but I wanted to make sure I said goodbye to you first. Happy birthday, Megan. I really hope it was everything you wanted it to be." She looked confused and concerned. "Are you sure you're okay? What happened over there with Sarah?" I glanced back toward where I'd left Sarah standing. She was back on her phone, probably texting Trevor or figuring out her next move. "Your best friend just told me she kissed Trevor specifically to make me jealous. So no, I'm definitely not okay right now, but I think I will be eventually." Megan's face completely fell. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." I saw what happened, but I thought, maybe it was just, I don't know what I thought it was. "It's not your fault at all. You didn't do anything wrong here." She looked like she wanted to say more, but I could see the internal conflict in her eyes. Sarah was her best friend since college, but she'd also witnessed what had just happened with her own eyes. "I'm really sorry this happened at your party," I continued. "You shouldn't have to deal with this kind of drama on your birthday. Please don't apologize for that. This absolutely isn't your fault either." I nodded in acknowledgement. Then, without really thinking about it consciously, I leaned in and gave her what was supposed to be a quick, friendly goodbye hug. We'd shared dozens of similar hugs before at various gatherings over the years. But something about this particular moment, all the emotions swirling around, the way she held on just a little longer than usual, made it feel completely different from any previous interaction we'd had. When we pulled apart, there was this moment of extended eye contact that lasted just a beat too long to be considered purely platonic. Then, and I'm still not entirely sure who actually initiated it, but we kissed. Not a long, passionate kiss, but definitely something much more than friendly. It lasted maybe 3 or 4 seconds, but it felt like everything around us had completely stopped moving. We broke apart and just looked at each other in surprise. Megan's cheeks were visibly flushed, and I could see she was just as surprised as I was by what had just happened between us. "I should probably go," I said quietly. She nodded in agreement. "Yeah, probably a good idea." I turned to leave, then stopped and looked back at her one more time. "For what it's worth, you deserve much better friends than people who would pull that kind of manipulative stunt at your birthday party." Then I left without another word. I didn't say goodbye to Sarah, didn't look for Trevor to confront him, didn't make any grand announcements to the remaining party guests. I just walked out of that rooftop bar and went home to my apartment. I spent the rest of that night and most of the following day really thinking hard about what I wanted to do next. Part of me wondered if maybe I was overreacting to the situation. Sarah and I had been together for 3 solid years. Shouldn't I at least try to work through this major issue? But every single time I thought about her exact words, "I kissed him to make you jealous." Did it work? I felt physically sick to my stomach. The manipulation, the calculated nature of her actions, the complete disregard for my feelings and our relationship. It all felt like a betrayal that went much deeper than just the physical act of kissing another person. Sarah tried calling me multiple times throughout Saturday, but I didn't answer any of her calls. She also sent several increasingly desperate text messages. "Can we please talk about this like adults? I know you're mad, but we can work through this together. I love you so much. Please don't throw away 3 years over one stupid mistake." I ended things with Trevor. He was just a friend anyway, nothing more. That last text message actually made me laugh out loud. "Ended things" strongly implied there had been something substantial to end in the first place, which completely contradicted her whole just a friend narrative she'd been pushing for months. On Sunday afternoon, Sarah showed up at our shared apartment. We'd been living together for over a year. Both our names were on the lease agreement, so it wasn't like I could legally keep her out. But when she walked through the door, I was already deep in the process of packing my personal belongings into cardboard boxes. "What are you doing exactly?" she asked, surveying all the boxes scattered around our living room. "I'm moving out. Today." "Don't you think that's a little bit extreme?" It was just one kiss. One kiss that you planned specifically to hurt and manipulate me. "Yeah, I think moving out is exactly the right response to that kind of behavior." She sat down heavily on our couch, looking completely defeated. "I never meant for it to hurt you like this. I just felt like you didn't care about me anymore. Like you were taking me and our relationship for granted. I needed to know if you still wanted to fight for us." Here's the thing, Sarah. If you have to manipulate someone into fighting for you, then they're not actually fighting for you. They're fighting against your manipulation tactics. And I'm not interested in being in a relationship where I have to constantly prove my love through jealousy and manufactured drama. We talked for another hour, going in circles, but my mind was already completely made up. She cried real tears, promised it would never happen again, said she'd cut off all contact with Trevor permanently, even offered to go to couples therapy together. But I couldn't get past the fundamental issue. She had deliberately chosen to hurt me in order to get a reaction. That wasn't love in any form I recognized. That was emotional manipulation and control. I stayed at my buddy Mike's place for a week while I apartment hunted and got my life reorganized. During that time, Sarah continued trying to reach out through calls, texts, and even showing up at Mike's apartment once. But I was completely done with the relationship. I found a nice one-bedroom place across town that was perfect for starting over, and I was completely moved in by the following weekend. I hadn't heard from Megan since the birthday party, which wasn't particularly unusual since we typically only communicated when we were all hanging out together as a group. But about a week after I moved out of the apartment I shared with Sarah, Megan sent me a text message. "Hey, I heard about you and Sarah breaking up. I'm really sorry things ended that way." I wasn't sure exactly how to respond. Did she know about our kiss? Did she regret it happening? Did she want to pretend it never occurred? Thanks for saying that. I'm sorry your birthday party got so dramatic and uncomfortable. Please don't worry about that at all. Are you doing okay with everything? I'm doing fine. Better than fine, actually. I think I really needed this wake-up call about our relationship. There was a long pause before her next message came through to my phone. "Can I ask you something personal? About what happened when you said goodbye to me?" Here it was. The moment of truth. I decided to be completely direct and honest. "You mean when we kissed?" "Yeah, exactly. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. Not because I want to cause more drama or complications, but because it felt different somehow. More real than anything else that night." I stared at my phone screen for a long time before responding. Megan was Sarah's best friend since college. Getting involved with her would definitely be messy, complicated, and probably hurt several people in the process. On the other hand, that brief moment between us had felt more genuine and authentic than anything I'd experienced with Sarah in many months. It felt very real to me too. We started texting each other more frequently after that initial exchange. Nothing inappropriate or secretive, just casual check-ins, sharing funny stories from our respective jobs, talking about movies and books we were enjoying. It was easy, comfortable conversation without any of the walking on eggshells feeling I'd grown accustomed to during the final months with Sarah. About 2 weeks after Megan's birthday party, she asked if I wanted to grab coffee together. Just as friends, she emphasized, but she wanted to talk face-to-face about everything that had happened and where we stood. I agreed to meet her. We met at this cozy little cafe downtown, completely neutral territory. She looked visibly nervous when I arrived, fidgeting with her coffee cup and barely making direct eye contact at first. "I need to tell you something important," she said, after we'd exchanged basic pleasantries. "Sarah called me yesterday. She knows about us kissing at my party." My stomach immediately dropped. How does she know? Someone at the party saw it happen and told her about it. She's not handling it well at all. What exactly did she say to you? Megan looked very uncomfortable. She accused me of going after you specifically to hurt her. She said I was a terrible friend and that I'd betrayed her when she was already going through such a difficult time with your breakup. And what did you tell her in response? The complete truth. That it just happened spontaneously, that neither of us planned it or intended it, and that she had absolutely no right to be angry about it, considering what she'd done to you first. I nodded approvingly. How did she take that response? About as well as you'd expect. She hung up on me immediately. I think our friendship might actually be over permanently. I felt genuinely guilty about that outcome. Whatever serious issues I had with Sarah's behavior, I didn't want to be the reason she lost her best friend from college. I'm really sorry about that. That's not what I wanted to happen at all. Megan shook her head firmly. Please don't apologize for any of this. I've been thinking about our friendship a lot lately, and honestly, I'm not sure we were as good friends as I always thought we were. A real friend wouldn't have done what she did to you, especially not at my birthday party in front of everyone. And a real friend would have trusted me enough to know that I'd never deliberately try to hurt her. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, sipping our coffee and processing everything that had happened. So where does that leave us exactly? I asked. I don't know for sure. I like you. I've actually always liked you, even when you were with Sarah. But this whole situation is incredibly complicated. It doesn't have to be complicated. Sarah and I are completely over. That decision was made before anything happened between you and me. If she's angry about the kiss, that's her problem to deal with, not ours. Megan smiled genuinely for the first time since I'd arrived. You make it sound so simple and straightforward. Maybe it really is that simple. Maybe we're the ones making it more complicated than it needs to be. Megan and I started dating officially about a month later. We took things very slow, both of us acutely aware of the delicate nature of our situation and how it might affect other people. But the more time we spent together, the more I realized just how genuinely unhappy I'd been with Sarah, without even fully recognizing it at the time. With Megan, I didn't have to constantly prove myself or compete for her attention. She appreciated my quiet, steady nature instead of constantly trying to change it into something more exciting. We could spend an entire evening just reading different books in the same room, and it felt intimate and comfortable rather than boring. When we went out together, she was present and engaged instead of constantly checking her phone or looking around the room for something more interesting. The physical chemistry was definitely there too, but it was completely different from what I'd experienced with Sarah. Less dramatic and volatile, but somehow much more satisfying and fulfilling. With Sarah, it had always felt like I was performing, trying to live up to some unspoken standard or expectation. With Megan, everything felt natural and easy and right. Of course, the transition wasn't completely smooth. Sarah continued trying to contact me for several weeks, alternating between begging me to take her back and angrily accusing me of cheating on her with her best friend. I eventually had to block her phone number and all her social media accounts. About 2 months after Megan and I started dating seriously, I ran into David at the local grocery store. He'd been caught directly in the middle of everything. Sarah was his girlfriend's former best friend, and Megan was his girlfriend's current ex-best friend. The whole situation was awkward and uncomfortable for everyone involved. "Hey man," he said when he spotted me in the cereal aisle. "How have you been holding up?" "Good. Really good, actually. How are things going with you?" He looked distinctly uncomfortable. "They're okay, I guess. It's been really weird, though, with all the drama and fallout." I nodded understandingly. "I bet it has been. I'm sorry you and Megan got dragged into all this mess. It's definitely not your fault. Sarah's been a lot to deal with lately." Megan told me what really happened at the party, about Sarah kissing that Trevor guy specifically to make you jealous. That's seriously messed up, man. "Yeah, it really was. But it's completely over now. I'm with Megan, and I'm genuinely happy for the first time in months." David smiled for the first time in our conversation. "She's a really good one, Megan is. I'm glad you two found each other, even if the circumstances were pretty complicated." "Me too. How is Sarah doing these days?" I asked, surprising myself with the question. Despite everything that had happened, I didn't actually want her to be completely miserable. Honestly, not great at all. She's been posting a lot of angry, bitter stuff on social media about betrayal and fake friends. She's been actively trying to turn mutual friends against Megan, but most of us were actually at the party that night. We all saw exactly what happened and who was responsible. I felt bad about Sarah's situation, but I also knew there wasn't anything I could or should do about it. Her behavior since our breakup had only confirmed that ending things was absolutely the right choice. It's been 6 months since that night at the rooftop bar, and I'm in a completely different place in my life. Megan and I are still together and stronger than ever, and it's honestly the healthiest, most fulfilling relationship I've ever been in. We moved in together last month, not because of any external pressure or artificial timeline, but because it felt absolutely right for both of us. I've learned so much about myself through this entire experience. I realized that I'd been compromising and sacrificing so much of who I actually was to try to make Sarah happy that I'd completely lost sight of what I actually wanted and needed in a relationship. With Megan, I don't have to be anyone other than my authentic self. The situation with Sarah has mostly resolved itself naturally. We run in completely different social circles now, so I rarely hear anything about her life. From what I understand through mutual friends, she's dating someone new. Another flashy, social media-obsessed guy who takes her on expensive trips and buys her designer clothes and jewelry. It sounds like exactly what she was looking for all along, so I genuinely hope she's found happiness. As for Trevor, the guy she kissed at Megan's party, that relationship apparently fizzled out pretty quickly after all the drama. According to David, Trevor wasn't interested in anything serious or committed and moved on to someone else within just a few weeks. Sarah was apparently devastated by this rejection, which made me realize she'd probably had real romantic feelings for him all along, despite repeatedly claiming it was just about making me jealous. Looking back now with clear perspective, I think the kiss at Megan's birthday party was just the catalyst for a breakup that was absolutely inevitable anyway. Sarah and I had grown in fundamentally different directions, wanted completely different things from life, and had incompatible ideas about what love and respect should look like in a committed relationship. The manipulation aspect was what really opened my eyes to the truth. Someone who genuinely loves you doesn't deliberately hurt you just to get a reaction or response. They don't test your feelings by making you jealous or insecure. They don't constantly compare you to other people to make you feel inadequate or insufficient. Real love is about acceptance, support, and working together toward common goals and dreams. I'm actually grateful to Sarah in a strange way, because her actions that night forced me to confront some really hard truths about our relationship and about myself. If she hadn't kissed Trevor so publicly, I might have stayed trapped in that unhealthy dynamic for years, always feeling like I wasn't quite enough, always trying to prove my worth through jealousy and competition. The saddest part of this entire situation is probably what happened to Sarah and Megan's long friendship. They'd been best friends for almost 8 years, sharing everything and supporting each other through college and early adulthood, and now they don't speak to each other at all. Sarah has been actively spreading rumors about Megan stealing me, which anyone who was actually present at the party knows is completely ridiculous and false. Megan has been genuinely hurt by the loss of such a long friendship, but she's also come to recognize that maybe it wasn't as solid and genuine as she'd always believed if Sarah was willing to throw it away so easily over this situation. A few weeks ago, Megan showed me some of the text messages Sarah had sent her after she found out about our relationship. They were cruel, manipulative, and specifically designed to make Megan feel guilty for betraying her during a difficult time. Reading those messages, I saw exactly the same patterns of behavior that had characterized the final months of my relationship with Sarah. The manipulation tactics, the refusal to take any personal responsibility, the attempts to control others through guilt and emotional blackmail. It reinforced for me that I'd made absolutely the right choice in walking away when I did, without looking back or second-guessing myself. Today, Megan and I are planning a weekend trip to the mountains together. It's the kind of simple, low-key getaway that Sarah would have absolutely hated. No fancy restaurants, no Instagram-worthy photo locations, just hiking trails and a cozy cabin where we can disconnect from the world. I'm looking forward to it in a way I never did with the elaborate, expensive date activities I used to plan desperately for Sarah. We've talked seriously about our future together, and while we're not rushing into anything major, we're both genuinely optimistic about where our relationship is heading. We want the same fundamental things: a true partnership based on mutual respect and trust, a quiet life focused on building something meaningful together, and the freedom to be our authentic selves without constant judgment or competition. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.